Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, Joe Blewett from Jets X Factor. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Really excited for the draft. I'm rocking the Hawaiian shirt because I was supposed to be getting married in Antigua this week, but we had to move it. So really excited to be here talking Jets football with you instead of Antigua.
Dude, I love the shirt. I'm jealous. I am so jealous.
Not too bad.
No, that is fresh. You're gonna have to tell me after the show where you got it, or if you remember where you got it. I know one of your buddies got it for you. Man, that's sharp. All right, guys, we are going to be doing a giveaway tonight. There is a link to Joe's channel down below in the description. He is a part of Jets X Factor with Robbie Sabo and Michael Nania, so make sure you go check that out. If you want to get in on the shirt giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe to Jets X Factor, like the video that is linked down below, and then leave a comment saying that Jets Talk sent you there, and then we are going to pick a winner at the end of the show. And you're going to win a top secret shirt. I know Trey, he got one. Dom's getting one. I think there's a few guys in the chat that have also got it. Top secret shirt for a draft. I think it will be there on time. If it's not, I apologize. And then if you win it and it winds up not being the correct pick, then I apologize and you just have a nice shirt that you can use as a rag. It's not, maybe not the best system I got going. But that's all right. But that's all right. I have no problem with that, and you guys shouldn't have a problem with it either. So, Joe, I want to get some of your thoughts. We're going to do a little bit of back and forth on what you think about some of the draft prospects, and then we're going to do a mock draft. Let's do a mock draft. We'll call it, I don't know, what do you say? Want to do it at 9 o'clock?
Mock draft 37.0 at this point,
Yes.
I'm sure.
I love it.
Yeah. That sounds good, man. I'm sure, like all the other Jets fans in the chat, I appreciate some people. I see some people who are here from my channel as well and your channel, who are combined. But yeah, it's at this point I'm doing like 37 a day. Like it's just we're dying for it. So yeah, let's do it. Let's discuss some things. I think there's some opinions that I want to get out there for the people who don't follow the channel.
See, I love it. Joe, if you guys have not watched any of Joe's stuff, he is like the best at film breakdown. I really, really enjoy it. Like anytime I'm trying to look into any sort of player or person that the Jets have just brought in, I always go over to Jets X Factor and I take a look at what they got going on, and Joe is just on point. He's got terms I've never heard of before, and then I watch it, I'm like, damn, that is some knowledge. That is a smart dude right there. So seriously, check it out. Trey, I was going to do call-ins, and I was actually going to include Joe in on the call-ins. We were going to do a wombo combo thing, but when I was playing around with StreamYard, I got intimidated and a little confused on how to do it, and I didn't want to screw up the audio again. So no call-ins this week, unfortunately, but possibly next week. Next week, I actually have Robbie Sabo on, so one of the other of the trio from Jets X Factor, so make sure you tune in for that as well. So I guess, Joe, let's talk a little bit about pick number 2. Everyone's expecting it to be Zach Wilson. Tell me why it is or is not going to be the quarterback from BYU.
Well, I think it's really like those 3 or 4 kind of instances where we had a really good idea. Obviously, at his pro day, you have the fact that the Niners say that they trade up to 3, but they didn't talk to the Jets. I think that's a bunch of bullshit, to be completely honest. If you're trading up to 3, you're going to try to trade up to 2, like to throw an extra second or third round pick for your guy. They were definitely willing to do that. I don't care if they say, oh, well, they might have these guys ranked the same. That you're always going to go for your preference, especially with quarterback, it being such an important position. So they definitely tried to trade up to 2. Obviously, the Jets did not trade with them. So that obviously is the first key. Okay, the Jets are taking quarterback. That was the first thing. Then I think it was Rappaport tweeted out something like the Eagles were going to try to trade up to 3, but they wouldn't unless it was Zach Wilson. I don't know if you guys know, but Joe Douglas has some connections with the Eagles organization. So they clearly got some word from him that they're going to take him at 2. And then you also had the whole thing with Steve Young, who's basically said the Jets are recruiting the parents. So that all that information combined, you have Vegas, who's pretty spot on with their stuff. And I believe right now it's minus 5,000 for the Jets to get Zach Wilson. So it's a lock. I'm 99.9% sure it's going to be Zach Wilson at this point. And I know we'll get into it in a little bit, but that's the right decision to me, especially for the offense. I've done both their breakdowns. I'll have some of that on my channel soon. But he is my number 2 quarterback. So I like the decision. I wouldn't be mad with Fields either, but I think a lot of signs are pointing in Wilson's directions, which are pretty obvious at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of everything that we've heard and the rumor mill and everything going on. And then, you start seeing some of the ESPN analysts and they're like, oh, you know what, maybe there's some deceitfulness there. And the Zach Wilson has said that he's a perfect fit for the 49ers offense and that Shanahan traded up to 3 because they know the Jets are not taking him. And I mean, I think that's a whole bunch of hooey, and I would imagine you are probably on that same bandwagon as well. Yes?
Oh, sorry, but my audio just went crazy for a second. I don't know what just happened. I didn't hear you. Just skipped out for like 5 seconds. I'm not sure if that was just me or if that was the channel as well. What was the last
sorry.
goal? Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just saying that I think that everyone's sort of expecting it to be Zach Wilson, and then you hear some of the talking head figures saying like, okay, well, the Zach Wilson has said he was the perfect fit for the 49ers offense, and that Shanahan knew he could get up to 3 and get it because he's got some inside knowledge with Salah and everything going on.
Again, it's Vegas is pretty damn smart for them to have minus 5,000 at this point. Like you bet $1 and you win 50. I believe that's how that is for that. I'm not the best at math. That's not my strong suit, but they're plugged in. And again, like a lot of these guys' jobs, like I discussed it on a recent live stream. A lot of these guys' jobs is not necessarily to throw out the best opinion or the most educated opinion. Their job is clicks. So the Kuipers out there, the Mark Schleier's out there who are acting like he is now, which is a joke. Their job is not to be informed, that have people respect them. They get clicks. That's how they get paid. So if you're not creating clicks, even if you're a really informative guy and you have really knowledgeable takes, if that's not generating clicks, they don't care. So people are going to try to throw out a bunch of these rumors and things like that just to create interest. Like how many drafts like recently before it's like it's almost like every year you hear, oh, there's gonna be so many trades in the first round. You go for the first round, there's like 2 trades, and it's like it's clicks. I wouldn't look too much into it. I am very, very, very confident that Zach Wilson it will be with the Jets. And I think he just like, there's a big like thing on Instagram where he followed like some car wrapping thing to do his car in New Jersey. Like all the Jets players follow and he followed it. So like there's a bunch of signs pointing to him here. I know there were some things about his family wanting him to go to the 49ers. And let's be honest, if I was his parents, would I rather have the 49ers over the Jets? Probably, based on recent history. So I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary for them to say that. Obviously, you'd prefer him to want to come to the Jets and his family want to come to the Jets, but I don't think they don't want to either. So especially the connection to Steve Young and all that stuff. But it's Zach Wilson. It's not really up for debate at this point.
So let's jump into this question then, because I see some people in the chat sort of debating it. So why Wilson over Fields? Like, we know we've seen the breadcrumbs and everything, but can you give us a little bit more light on why you think that might be the pick?
In terms of like who is the better quarterback?
Sure. Yeah, so is it a system fit? Is it a strength thing?
Yeah, we got, and I have I think 139 plays I recorded that I'm going to put out. And if I get another game, I might be 150. So you're going to get plenty of hours of me talking about it just to back up my opinion. And to be really simplistic about it, I've talked about it so many times that I don't know where to really go at this point. Fields to me is more traitsy. Like there's more, you have the arm strength, which Wilson also has. You have the mobility. You have the top end speed, the deep ball, in my opinion, which is much better, or not much better. It is better than Wilson's though, in my opinion. I think it's more translatable, where Wilson might throw a little bit of a lower deep ball that might be able to get contested in the NFL. So you have those things. He's like the generic quarterback that you want. Not generic. That's not the right word. If you want to start your Madden franchise with one guy to mold, it's Justin Fields. But in terms of like the actual quarterback position, Zach Wilson's better to me in terms of the I think the accuracy is relatively similar. I think Justin Fields' accuracy over the middle is a little bit overrated. Some of his touch on his balls is not that great over the middle. Sometimes he will. I think Sabo put it as velocity variety. Like he doesn't have the velocity variety that you necessarily want over the middle on it sometimes. But in terms of like the actual quarterback positioning that or position that Wilson has over Fields to me, which were really important, especially for this offense. Anticipation. You saw that clearly on film that his anticipation is better. His ability to quickly pull the trigger. There are some times where you see Fields, and I think it's kind of bullcrap. The whole like storyline going around that he only goes through his one reads. The reason he's only going through one read at a time is because of the Ohio State offense and a lot of his option routes. So you're going to stare at guys when you have option routes. Okay, if the corner plays bail, he's going to break back to the quarterback. If he's playing short and a little bit too aggressive, he'll take it vertical. So he's staring at guys because that's how the offense is laid out. So that's a little bit of crap, but there are times where you see him on film and he really has to see a guy open to throw it, where Wilson is a little bit quicker to anticipate open windows. I don't care about his competition. The window throws he made were very translatable. There might have been one or two a game that might not have been, but overall it's very translatable. So the anticipation, the trigger, the fact that he ran a really similar offense at BYU is another thing where, again, I don't like to make the Ohio State comparisons with Justin Fields' other quarterbacks, but a lot of the reason those quarterbacks don't work out is because the offense is not translatable. It's just not. You just don't have a bunch of option routes, air raidy type stuff in the NFL a ton now. Obviously, you have some concepts sprinkled in, but it's just not what you see a lot at the NFL level. So a lot of those guys fail at the NFL level trying to pick that up. And Ohio State, they care about themselves. They care about the program. They don't care about, let's make him translatable to the NFL. So that's why you see some of those guys struggle. I'm not saying Fields will. I think he's the best prospect to come out of there, pretty much ever, or I think ever. But it's a gimmicky type offense. And again, Zach Wilson translate better because of the familiarity with the system that the Jets will be presumably running. And again, the quarterback and the processing, things like that. There's a lot of stuff I've broken down, and I will break down on that, but that's a kind of generically why.
Very cool. It's super interesting. Guys, down below in the description, the first link you see down below is a link to Joe's most recent video. He's a part of Jets X Factor. Make sure you hit subscribe, like that video, and drop a comment saying Jets Talk sent you over there. We're going to pick someone that comments on that video to win a top secret draft shirt at the end of this stream. Green Bean, my boy. How you doing in there? He likes your shirt, Joe.
I didn't even see him. What's up, Green Bean?
He just jumped in. I love it. But yeah, if you guys want to try and get yourself a shirt, make sure you head over to Jets X Factor. The link is down below in the description to that video. Say Jets Talk sent you there, and you'll have to like and subscribe, of course, and then you'll get entered to win a shirt at the end of this stream. I see Trey is excited. Trey got his shirt. He won one, 2 weeks ago. I hope it could get to you in time, because draft is 10 days away now, so it's shipping might be a little bit of an issue. We'll see, but hopefully it gets there on time. But someone's gonna win a cool shirt. All right, so I guess before I jump into pick number 23, do you think there's any shot whatsoever, all the hype surrounding Zach Wilson, that Trevor Lawrence does not go number one?
No, didn't they just do something with Trevor Lawrence recently? Like they are donating to a charity, or he's donating to a charity in Jacksonville or something like that. Like it's happening. You have Meyer who came out and basically said that he's like one of his most favorite college prospects to ever come out. Like it's a foregone conclusion. Again, a lot of this stuff is just because we're bored at this point, and they want to get clicks. So it's an easy article to write. It's 2 paragraphs. You get thousands of clicks on it, and that's about it. So Lawrence is a lock at 1. Wilson's a lock at 2. 3 is looking like it's starting to lean more heavily to Fields, who again I don't dislike. It's just a gimmicky offense. I think he's more traitsy than he is a quarterback at this point. I know people in the chat are saying he lit up Clemson, and I agree. I think that the problem with that is, and it's not necessarily a problem, it's the fact that was the best game that either prospect has ever played, in my opinion, number 1. But at the same time, and it's not maybe a fair comparison, it's really not, it's just to put my point across, Geno Smith lit up the Falcons. Like, does that mean he's a better quarterback than whoever else who might not have had a better game than that? So while I agree, that was not what I consistently saw on film for Fields. And a lot of times, like the argument with Fields versus Wilson, again, I'm just kind of covering all my ground here, is Wilson played the lesser competition. It was much more easy for him. You have to consider, one, who they're playing and what their team was surrounded by. Like when Justin Fields is playing, let's just say North Alabama, whoever it is. He has guys who are draftable. He has Olave. He has the tight end. I forget his name. He has Wyatt Davis. He has Trey Sermon. Like, yeah, Wilson had Christensen or whatever his name is, the tackle, and he had Malign. And I think there's another like fullback or tight end who's draftable in that team. But in my opinion, what I watch and what I will show is it was a lot easier for Fields than Wilson, in my opinion. So I always hear that argument, but you have Fields who had a relatively clean pocket. But at the same time, he was also throwing into wide open windows where, yeah, you had Wilson who might have had clean pockets, but was also throwing into tighter windows. So there's arguments to be made for both sides of that. But again, I just think Fields had it much easier at times. And people talk about the Clemson game too. Like, look at Clemson's defense. Who is there one player that I can't think of one player on that defense who's draftable in my opinion. Like, I don't know anybody who's a top 3-4 round prospect. So yeah, he lit up a defense that's not very good. Again, you know, the fact that the offense he's in, gimmicky, the one read stuff, which again I think is a little bit overblown, but it's just not as translatable I think as people think it is. I think it's easy to imagine him running past guys and juking guys and all that stuff, but then there's also a question of, okay, well, if he's running like he is in college, do you worry about him only lasting 5 to 7 years in the NFL because he gets hurt? You know, that's another thing about him. So people talk about the injuries at Wilson, but then they fail to mention that Fields is a guy who runs and is a guy who he doesn't have bad pocket awareness. It's not bad pocket awareness. Some people mistake pocket awareness for confidence, and they don't really get it. Where he knows guys are coming, but the problem with Fields is he'll hold the ball and think he can break a sack when he can't. So it's not that he doesn't see guys. He just thinks he can. He's too confident in his abilities. So I ranted on that. I don't know, or not ranted. I don't know what you asked, but that's Wilson's. I mean, Lawrence is going 1. That's what you asked.
Dude, your rants are way better than mine. Mine wind up going off on tangents, and I'm going on things that aren't even like. I start talking about movies and stuff. That made way more sense than anything I do. Guys, if you see down below, I have a little ticker going across. We are going to be doing a live mock draft on PFN at 9:00. So in just 36 minutes. Wow, almost said 46. That's Joe and I not good with the math here. So make sure you stay tuned to that. We're going to go through all 7 rounds. You're going to see the draft board, and we're just going to be kind of going through different things and giving our thought processes on that. So, Joe, let's talk a little bit about pick number 23. We got the quarterback at number 2. We're taking Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. What do you think the next move should be for the Jets come pick 23?
Ideally, like, and it seems like how the board's gonna fall. You want like the best player available at a position of need. Like, there's a couple of different ways I think it could go. That fans necessarily might not be happy with. Like, let's say, you know, you have guys like Tevin Jenkins who are gone, AVT who are gone, and there's really not an offensive lineman they like there. They're not going to force to pick and reach for maybe a Wyatt Davis, depending on where he falls. So you might not have an offensive lineman. You might have, you know, the big corners go, whether it be, you know, Farley, Newsome, Surtain, etc. Them all not be on the board. So those are the 2 biggest positions of need, in my opinion, and I think of a lot of other Jets fans' opinions. But then you could be looking at guys like Jalen Phillips or Kwity Paye. Like, it's so one of those 3. I can also argue linebacker. I know a lot of people don't think of the linebacker position and kind of just overlook it. Listen, again, I spoke about it a lot. Saleh in his defense, he likes to leave linebackers on the field where other guys will go nickel. So like the common saying is always, oh, well, teams run nickel so much it doesn't even matter what their base defense is. I think that's overused at this point where, again, going against 11 personnel, you know, one tight end, one running back, where other teams would respond with nickel. Saleh likes linebackers who can cover. That's what he does. He stays in base a good amount. It might be a little bit less than 50-50, but somewhere around there. So linebackers are really important. And you look at the team right now with their linebackers, it's literally like, again, there might be some guy who's like a practice squad player, but right now it's Blake Cashman, CJ Mosley, who hasn't played in 2 years, and Davis. And that's it. Like, that's all you have. And what did Cashman play last year? Like 7 snaps. Like, he didn't play at all. CJ Mosley, again, I think he'll be better than some people think he is because he's never been a guy who necessarily thrives on his physicality. So he's more of a winner because of his technique and his mental makeup. So I think he'll be good coming back. I still think he'll be a top 10, top 15 inside linebacker in the league. And then even if Davis works out, like, let's say, you know, he rounds out to form and he's a decent, you know, outside linebacker, whether that be Sam or Will. I think it really depends on who the Jets pick up. Who is that other guy? Like literally, you don't have anybody there. So let's say if they fell in love with the Owusu Koromoa, who is almost like a safety linebacker hybrid, and you wanted him to play Will, or maybe on some heavier sets, he plays some safeties in the box against 12 personnel sets, 22, whatever it may be. I think it's a possibility. So it's really one of like linebacker, edge, corner, guard, tackles, like depending. People will argue for wide receiver. The Jets are pretty deep at wide receiver right now, obviously with 4 guys. I understand the whole Crowder replacement thing. But it's not one of my primary concerns. I think a guy in the mid round, especially with wide receivers, like every draft now you hear, and it's been the last couple of years, oh, this is the deepest wide receiver draft. It's because of where college football is going with the spread. A lot of passing plays. A lot of these drafts are going to be deep with wide receivers. So you can find receivers in the mid rounds who are going to be pretty productive. So unless like a Devontae Smith or a Waddle fell, like, yeah, I can understand that. But overall, I think one of those 4 positions at, linebacker, corner, edge, offensive line are the way to go unless they trade down. But the board's going to be interesting. It depends on who falls. So,
yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning as well. Not so much linebacker in the first round. I can understand the need. I thought, I don't love at 23 or 34 to go linebacker. I could understand it with Salah having the background in linebackers, and Mosley, we don't know what he's going to be after 2 years off. And they like Davis, but he's only on a 1-year contract. So who do we have to move forward with? So I think if Salah likes a linebacker, I think there will be that thought to pull the trigger on someone, and we have the heir apparent. Because I don't think Mosley is going to be on this team beyond this year. I think they're going to cut that contract, and they're just going to kind of wipe clean the whole McCagnon slate. I do like, from the little bit of tape that I have been watching, Kwity Paye, J.C. Horn, there's no way he's going to make it to us, I don't think. I really like him.
Yeah. No, it doesn't
AVT is good, but I don't think he's going to make it to us. I think... What do you think about Creed Humphrey? I've seen a lot of people think that Creed Humphrey is going to get picked by the Steelers, just 1 pick behind us. Now, it seems like we didn't push the center option in free agency because we didn't go after Corey Linsley. They want McGovern to be the center. Do you think there's any thought to Joe Douglas maybe liking Creed Humphrey at number 23 and moving him or McGovern over to guard at that point?
It really depends. Like if obviously, like you said, and like we heard in free agency, they didn't pursue Linsley because they didn't want to move McGovern. Now, would they do that for a younger prospect? Maybe they felt like if it's a longer term thing, they would do that. So it's a thing with a lot of questions. It's one, can McGovern move or can Creed Humphrey move? Like, I don't know if he played it in high school. I don't know if he played in college. I haven't looked at throughout his entire college career, but if one of those guys can play guard, I think they would be an option. I'm just not sure if they could. So it's kind of, I'm answering a question with a question. Sure. Is it a possibility? Yes, but again, people just automatically assume, oh, we'll move McGovern over. Then why were we having all the discussions about Linsley and McGovern not moving over? Like they want him at center. So it really depends on Joe Douglas' thinking and if they have that position flexibility. Because again, everybody, like it doesn't matter what position is on the offensive line. It's because in Madden you'd make your left tackle a center and he goes from an 80 overall to a 79. It doesn't work like that in the NFL. It's different positions. It's different foot cadence. It's different hand strikes. It's different in terms of power. Like a lot of people will look at like these tackles who are tall and put them on the inside. You don't really see a lot of tall guards because it's a lot of a leverage game on the inside. So it depends on if they can move. I could see it being an option, but again, it depends who falls. Like a lot of people in the chat are saying, oh, well, it's got to be a cornerback or inside or interior offensive lineman. Again, what if all these interior offensive linemen we don't like aren't there? And what if one of the corners we don't like isn't there? And you have a guy in Owusu Koromoa who falls to 23, who some people are saying can go really high at this point because he could do everything. I could see it happening. Is it a preference of mine? No, but would I be upset with Owusu Koromoa at 23 as I would be with Rashad Bateman at 23? I think it's still a very big position of need. For the people who are saying linebacker does not matter, you're crazy. It matters a lot. Look at the Jets the last 10 years of their play. Guys getting destroyed on wheel routes or sit routes or option routes, jerk routes, wherever it is over the middle, they get absolutely destroyed. And the NFL is it's a lot of intermediate game. Like, yeah, the deep shots are nice, but you win a lot in like that 5 to 15 yard window. And that's where the linebackers are a lot. So, and especially with that compounded, look at the tight ends in the division right now. You obviously have the Patriots who just brought in Jonnu Smith. They brought in Hunter Henry. You have the Dolphins with Gesicki, and then if I had to bet on who they're going to pick at 6, I think it's going to be Pitts. So yeah, let's just have Blake Cashman out there versus Pitts. Like, it's an important position. Again, it's not ideal, but I could see that. But yeah, with Creed, we'll see how they view him if he can transition to guard or from a governor cut. I'm not sure.
So in my most recent mock draft, I had the Jets going with Caleb Farley. I had them just going cornerback. My big thing, I think, is that fifth-year option is so valuable. I would prefer it to be like an edge or a corner, a premier position. I'm not on board with wide receiver like I've heard some people say. Yeah. But a lot of people are saying, like, okay, well, if you're taking the quarterback at 2, let's surround this guy with as much talent as possible and just go 23-34 offensive side of the ball. Maybe not so much wide receiver. Could be wide receiver, could be offensive line. Maybe it's a tight end at 34 or whatever. Do you think there is a huge need to do that given what we got to see out of free agency? Because I do like Corey Davis and I do like Keelan Cole.
Yeah.
And Tevin Coleman is a nice, little addition to the stable. I don't think it's necessarily, any type of long-term fix, but do you think there's any pressure on the Jets to force offensive side of the ball at pick 23 and 34?
On the offensive line, I think it's a must to grab one at 23 or 34, depending on how the board falls. So I think they have to add at least a starter, and maybe like obviously if they go interior offensive line 23 and 34, I'm not gonna go crazy because like at this point, I get that corner is important, and maybe that would be your next pick you make in the draft in the 3rd round, but the Jets aren't going really far this year, obviously. I think we'd all be happy with 8 and 9, 9 and 8. Like we'd all be pretty excited about that. The number one priority right now is Zach Wilson, whoever the quarterback is drafted. We're assuming it's Zach Wilson. So if they went back to back interior offensive line, I'm good with that. But in terms of the receiver position, I'd rather take a tight end at 34, depending on who fell than wide receiver, because again, and I think people automatically equate the 49ers offense to what the Jets are going to run. You also have the Packers offense with his brother LaFleur, who runs a little bit more 11 personnel and a little bit more inside zone. So it's not going to be, okay, it has to be outside zone. It has to be 12 personnel. It could be a little bit more 11 personnel. And based on where the Jets are going right now with their receiver room is, would you rather have Croft or Wesco on the field or Keelan Cole or Crowder? Obviously the strength is at wide receiver. So I think they will run a little bit more 11 personnel, a little bit more inside zone than some people think they are, but still, they're not going to run as heavy as Gase did with the 11 personnel. They are going to run some 12, some 22. Like Gase ran it primarily just all 11. They'll still run it pretty heavy, but not as much. So receivers are important. But again, you said we have 4. Like, what is Crowder? 29 years old. You could always re-sign him. He's a top 15 slot receiver, top 10 slot receiver. You have Keelan Cole, who I think is probably the best 4th receiver we've probably ever had, to be realistic. Looking at what he did with guys.
I like him a lot.
Was it Luke Walton? Luke Walton. I think Blake Bortles when he first started, but look at some of the quarterbacks he was playing with and some of the production he put up. So then you have that, and you have Mims and Davis. I don't think receiver's a necessity. I think it's more of a late round flyer you're going to take. You want that gimmicky type player, jet sweeps, end around screens. You want that type of guy, because none of their guys are great at that. They're all kind of decent, but there's plenty of guys available in those mid rounds. Receivers almost becoming a position where it's almost oversaturated. To take a guy high, he has to be legit. So yeah, a wide receiver at 23 or 34, I'm not with that. Unless obviously a guy falls and he's just much better than all the players around him, then yeah, you want to go BPA. But
yeah, that's kind of where I fall as well. And it's almost like the rules in the NFL have shifted to such a point where I don't want to say any wide receiver can be good, but it sort of makes the wide receiver position a little more plug and play, or a little more, I don't know, unless you are an elite receiver like we got to see out of some of the 1st round guys. I think last year, I think you got maybe 3 or 4 guys this year, aside from Pitts, that are going to go in the 1st round. I guess maybe 5. So I guess gut feeling. Well, before I ask you this, I had us taking Caleb Farley. A lot of people don't like him because of the back issues. When I looked into Greg Newsome, I found out he never played a full season either. So I was sort of at an impasse, and I wasn't sure what to do. Caleb Farley's considered, from what I've seen, a top 15 prospect, top 10 prospect when healthy in this class. Are you concerned at all with, I know you don't know necessarily the injury per se, but do you think at 23, do the Jets have the luxury of gambling on a player like that, or should we be going 100% healthy because we just have so many holes to fill?
Yeah, again, like you kind of answered it for me as you're asking the question. It depends on the medicals. Like I'm not a doctor. Now would I prefer to take an injured player? No, like if it was more of like a not like a freak injury, but like, okay, a finger or a wrist or something that was kind of, you could work past, like, okay, you could play with a broken wrist. Obviously you're not going to the NFL. People don't do that. It's not hockey, but you can't really play with an injured back. Like that's just something that's really concerning, especially when he's had what, 2 surgeries on it now. So it really depends. Now at 23, it depends on who's on the board. Like, let's say if it's, just like generically who might be there. Let's say if it's, AVT and Tevin Jenkins versus him, like, would I rather take the offensive lineman, who I want for the young quarterback and who has not had injury problems? Yes. But at the same time, Farley, some people view him as the best corner based on film in the entire draft. So it's really about risk reward. But I don't think the Jets are necessarily, because they're so far away from, legitimately competing for a Super Bowl, they're not a team who could afford to be overly risky at this point. Now, if he fell to 34, I'm all for it. But again, it depends on who's there and what the medicals are. So it's like a loaded question that I don't really have. I have like 10% of the answer,
Yeah, I know. I kind of knew that as I was saying. I was like, you know what? This is sort of a silly question.
Yeah.
I guess in my mind, I was sort of comparing it to like the Miles Jack situation that Jacksonville had. Now, that was an early second-round pick that they spent on him. So maybe at 34, you're more likely to gamble on that elite level corner if you were to fall that far. So I guess if you had your way about it and you could pick the position at 23, because the next question I'm going to ask is who you want at 34 based on who you picked at 23. So if all things sort of broke the right way, realistically, who would you like to see at 23? It could be position-wise, it could be player-wise.
Just because it's so important, I would say interior offensive line. And it depends too, because like a lot of these mock drafts we do, which are always like very, very wrong. Like, let's be honest, like a lot of people like automatically, like, let's say you take a Chaz Surratt in the 3rd round, and people are like, oh my God, there's no way he'll ever be there. And like the NFL draft comes and he's in the 5th round, so like it's, you don't really know how the board is going to fall, but based on how it's been falling in a lot of these mock drafts, it seems like there's a little bit more, or there's a little bit more options at 34 for offensive linemen than there is at 23. But ideally, it's, again, the offensive line is so damn important. You really start from the inside, especially with a quarterback. I would want it to be Vera Tucker. And if it's not Vera Tucker, I would want it to be Tevin Jenkins. I think you can move him into guard. He could be a dominant guard. Whether it's left or right guard, I'm not really sure. But then you really have, 4 relatively strong pieces. You have Becton, you have McGovern, who bounced back at the end of last year, and I think will play better with better play around him, because people always talk about how bad he played, but then don't really look at what the guard play was around him in terms of like picking up stunts and things like that. So he'll be better, average-ish center. Tevin Jenkins at left or right guard, and then you have you cut Lewis, then you have a competition between Greg Van Roten, Clark, who I was pretty high on coming out last year, and maybe another mid-round guy. And then you have Fant, who's a little bit below average right tackle, but if he's the weakest piece in your offensive line is pretty solid, to be completely honest. So I would prefer one of those guys. And if it's not one of those guys, I prefer a corner, again, whether it be a Greg Newsome. Horn has been getting a ton of hype. I really don't think him or Surtain falls. So I think it's really going to be, a Newsome or a Farley or AVT, or a Jenkins, who are my top 4 guys who I'm really looking at hopefully falling. So
I love it. Guys, if you're just tuning in, I got Joe Blewett from Jets X Factor here on with me. His link to his channel is down below in the description. It's that first link. If you want to get yourself entered to win a shirt at the end of the stream, all you have to do is follow Jets X Factor, click on the link below, like that video, and leave a comment saying that Jets Talk sent you there. And we're going to pick someone at the end of this show to get a top secret shirt. Trey, if you're in the chat still, hype it up. You won the shirt. Was it 2 weeks ago now? It's a top secret draft shirt. I should be there by draft time. Hopefully, so that way you can wear it on draft night. I think it'd be a lot of fun. All right, so we got your thoughts on pick 23. Now, based on what happens at 23, what would you like to see the Jets do at pick 34?
Okay, so if it's an offensive lineman at obviously the ideal thing is like Farley falls and like his medical was overblown, and then you have Farley there. But 34 is really a wild card, because like, again, a lot of the mocks I do, which I'll preface it by saying they're all stupid, but There's not a lot of like corners there who I see who are going to be there. So I'm hoping one of the top guys fall. Again, like ideally, it's like okay, ideally, like I think if it's the closest chance of being perfect would really be like a Newsome at 23, and then a guy like Jenkins or Creed or Wyatt Davis at 34. Because I just don't really see a lot of corners who are available at 34 who are like worth taking. So that 34th spot might be a linebacker. Maybe it's a Zaven Collins. Maybe Jalen Phillips falls because of some injuries. So I think that spot's a little bit more of a wild card, depending if they do take that the offensive lineman at 23. So it's a wild card, but ideally it's a corner. But who I don't necessarily want to reach. Like if all those guys are off the board, and it's like a whoever the corner is who is Melon Fonwu, if it's like a guy like that, or maybe like Eric Stokes. Like I don't necessarily want to reach for positions, because again, the Jets are in a position right now with their franchise. They don't necessarily need to plug holes. Like they do. That don't take that the wrong way. They don't need to plug holes to make that Super Bowl run. They need to take the best player available. For the most part, you obviously want to at a position of need, but like, okay, was interior defensive line necessarily need when Quinnen Williams came here? Not necessarily, but look how good Quinnen Williams is now. So like, you want to take one of the best players. I don't think you necessarily just reach for need. But with that being said, if they take a defensive tackle at 34, I think Jets fans are gonna light the facility on fire. That's just not gonna happen.
Fuck!
But, yeah, it depends. I could see like an edge rusher again, like a Jalen Phillips. We'll talk about Kwity Paye. Like, so it's easy because like we look at the Jets' needs. We all say, okay, corner, interior offensive line. I would say linebackers third for me. And if people just want to plug them. But if you have, let's say, whoever it may be, let's say it's I don't know if Green Bean's still in here, but like a Pat Fryermuth, and they have him rated as an A-.
Green Bean loves him, the tight ends.
But let's
loves him, the tight ends.
Okay, so let's say he's an A- on the Jets board. Like, let's say he's on a 90 overall on their board, and then the next best corner is Eric Stokes, and he's an 85. Do you reach for that position of need? Because tight end is another position of need that's underrated as well. You want another guy there. Chris Herndon, I get people say, oh, it's just Adam Gase. Okay, Adam Gase is dropping balls for him as well, So I could see it's been really interesting to do this mock draft too, because there's just so many different options. We get to talk about it as it comes. But and again, like people don't think about it too. Like people, oh, you automatically have to get a corner at 34. To my knowledge, you have guys like Richard Sherman out there, Steven Nelson out there. So free agency is not over. So you could always supplement your roster with guys who are out there after the draft. So you want to take the best player, again, hopefully at a position of need. Again, if Bateman falls at to 34, there's so many options.
So guys, like I said earlier in the video, and you'll see going across the ticker in the bottom, Joe and I will be doing a live mock draft at 9 o'clock, just 15 minutes from now. And we're going to go through everything and sort of talk about who falls, who we want to see the Jets take. So make sure you stay tuned for that. What would you say? Do you have a late round gem? I'm not going to, it doesn't matter what round, or is there a player that you're kind of eyeing that you sort of hope the Jets would like to possibly target in the later rounds? For me, I think, and I don't know if it's necessarily a scheme fit, the guy runs a blazing fast 40, Kerry Vincent Jr. I was going to say Kerry Vincent Jr. because we haven't brought back Brian Poole, and you actually had some really interesting comments on why the Jets were not bringing back Brian Poole. And I think, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I think
which is basically the fact it's not a why. It's more that they had he was a player under Ulbrich, or Ulbrich was with that organization with the Falcons. The Falcons didn't bring him back, so they might not think he's a fit for whatever they're going to be doing. And when I watched the film of him with the Falcons and I broke it down, I was watching it and I said he's really inconsistent. So maybe whatever that role is going to be more towards the Falcons scheme. They think he's going to be inconsistent, and they don't think that he's worth the money that he's going to bring back. So they have that connection there where maybe they just don't like the player.
So is there a player that you like at some point in this draft, any round, that you could maybe consider like a sleeper or someone that the Jets should be looking at that you've keyed in on?
Yeah, again, I'm usually pretty honest. A lot of people like watch, a 3-minute highlight video of Trey McKitty and be like, oh, he's going to be the best tight end ever. But then you don't see all the bad plays. Like, you can make a highlight film of literally anybody who plays college football. Like, they're going to have good plays. So with that being said, and admitting That this is not like, this is more like an ignorant take because I haven't really watched these guys. Some guys who come to mind, I said Schwartz. I think the Jets really need that speed threat. I like that idea. And another guy I like, just because like on the later rounds, I typically tend to lean towards taking guys who are freaks. Like I don't like the, let's say the like a Sage Surratt, who's like kind of like maxed out in terms of like his, not his potential, but like his physical capabilities, where he's always going to be a guy who's like a number 3 or number 4 in my opinion, based on what I've watched. But I like to take the freaks who may develop. And I think the Vikings did it with Daniel Hunter, but I think he was like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Maybe I could be wrong. I think he's right around there. So one guy who comes to mind who I've seen is a little bit of a freak. I think his name is Janarius Robinson or whatever, the DN from Florida State. So like, I think it's Florida State. So just because the Jets, I don't think edge rusher is necessarily their need. But if you can take a guy like Robinson in round 5 or 6, and then he develops behind some of the best rushers, let's be honest, like, I'm not a huge Jets homer, but right now their defensive line is nasty. And if you can get a young guy with really good physical capability to learn behind these guys, Curry ships out next year, and you have Robinson and Lawson and Rankins and Q and Fadokasi and even like Kyle Phillips. Like, I like some of those names, but again, I'll really have to watch, because I could watch some of these YouTube highlights and then watch the player and be like, oh, this guy sucks. Like that's very good possibility. Like I'll be honest. So
I've wanted the Jets to sign Vinny Curry for like 3 off seasons in a row. So the fact that it like finally happened this year was just such a nice thing. I know he's like getting older and everything, but I think he's such a good situational pass rusher. And I really like the Carl Lawson signing a lot. I think I was reading some of Nania's comments on it, and I was like, man, this guy's high on him. I was like, Nani is a smart dude. I'm all about it. I like this sort of stuff. Now, as far as I want to ask a little bit about Zuniga. Like, did you see anything from Zuniga in the limited amount of time we got from him that leads you to believe that he may be a mainstay in this defensive line in the future? Like, could he be? Is he maybe not the edge rusher that might have been like a John Abraham, but is he maybe more of like a Brian Thomas type kind of player where he might be able to set the edge or anything along those lines? What should I be expecting out of Zuniga?
Again, like people are mentioning names here, like he's like the 11th, 12th guy in the defensive line right now. Like you look at just their D tackles, they have like 5 guys. You count Frank Lemires, then you have Lawson, you have Curry, maybe you have a mid-round guy like a Robinson. You have Huff still there, who last year, when he didn't play as many snaps, he was productive. When he played more snaps, he wasn't as productive. So as like a limited guy who's going to play maybe 5 to 10 snaps a game, like I have more confidence in him. Then in Zuniga, you have a guy in Phillips, who's an undrafted guy, played really good in his rookie year, then obviously got injured last year, who I would put over Zuniga. And to be honest, like, so he showed me more explosion at Florida than he did with the Jets. So a lot of guys, they think too much. Like that's a very real thing in the NFL. You're thinking too much. You're thinking about your hand placement. You're thinking, okay, on my 3rd step, I'm going to hesitate and shoot back outside. Like it really depends how much those guys are thinking. That's why like simple defenses, you hear them say, okay, well, they're not thinking. And that's why they're playing better. It's simple. So, and that kind of happened with Mims too, with his press releases, by the way, because Mims was a guy who was really good at the Senior Bowl, really good in terms of getting off a press release. And in the Jets, he looked like he rushed his releases a little bit, but that's the story for a different day. So Zuniga has explosion where I think he could be like a rotational defensive end. But in terms of what I saw last year, absolutely nothing. Like, let's be honest. He came in and he was just swimming. Like he did not look good at all. So, if he gets cut, would I be disappointed because he was a 3rd or 4th round pick? I would be disappointed, but at the same time, you have so much talent that you can't afford to just keep a guy because you drafted him. Like good GMs will cut their players a year early. Obviously, Bill Belichick being a guy like that. So would I expect anything? No, to be honest. Will I be surprised with anything? Yes, at this point.
Guys, we're going to start our mock draft in just 9 minutes. Down below in the description, the first link you'll come across is the link to Joe's channel, Jets X Factor. He's part of the channel with Robbie Sabo and Michael Nania. Make sure you head down there, drop a subscribe, click on that video. If you want to get entered to win a shirt at the end of the stream, we're going to pick someone at the end of the stream. All you have to do is subscribe to Jets X Factor, like that video that's in the description, and leave a comment saying Jets Talk sent you there. And then we will pick one of those comments to win a shirt at the end of this stream. Let's take a look at some of the comments going on in the chat, see what you guys are talking about. We got about 8 minutes before we kick this mock draft off. Green Bean talking about Scoop from Bean. Trade back still coming. Kellen Mond will be our quarterback because why not? Green Bean, no. You don't take the quarterback. If you like a quarterback so much, don't trade down and try to play with fire because then you're just asking for someone to take him. Not that I think Kellen Mond is going top 5. But,
I safe to say I'd be very, very disappointed at this point. I think that Wilson's a much better quarterback than Kellen Mond. So
Green Bean goes, that's the comment you read of all of them? Sorry, dude. Liam goes, are we ready for the pork roll Taylor Ham debate yet? We've gone into this. It's got to be 2 or 3 times at this point.
I feel like that's every time I'm on. I think I've had that conversation at least twice while I've been on here.
Oh, easily. And we're not going to get into it now because I know I'm right and it is Taylor Ham. So it is what it is.
What's the product you're eating? It's pork roll, but it's okay.
It is.
Taylor's the brand,
Ham,
pork roll's the product.
Pork
You're eating
roll.
pork roll, not eating Taylor Ham. And I get like the whole thing with like Q-tips and stuff, but do you eat Kellogg's or like the cereal brand? Like, do you not eat Captain Crunch? You eat Kellogg's instead? Like it's pork roll. You go to plenty of places in New Jersey, people don't realize it's Boar's Head or it's whatever brand it is. So it is pork roll. Like anybody below pretty much like, I don't know, like exit like 135 think it's pork roll. So you have 80% of the state who said it's pork roll, and then just the people who are like wannabe New Yorkers say it's Taylor Ham. So it is what it is. You're a wannabe New Yorker.
Let's be honest. There's got to be like even if it's the bottom 80% of the state, I would bet the majority of the state lives in that top 20 to 30%.
Who want to be New Yorkers?
Who want to be New Yorkers? Whatever. It's sort of the same. We all commute to the city. Well, I don't. My ass goes 20 minutes down the road, hangs out at a golf course for a little bit. What else we got going on in the chat? Frank says
the one thing I can ask you, because I know you've been a little bit like hesitant with this, so get your opinion. Sure. You've been wishy-washy on the Fields versus Wilson debate. So for 6 minutes, if we can discuss that, is there a reason? Sure. Like again, a lot of people will talk about Fields in the chat, and I think it's more based on and I don't hate Fields. It's just that I think he's more traitsy. It's more of a projection. It's more of the ceiling. Like I get, he played the better competition, all this stuff, and people just like look at the stats and the schedule. But in terms of like actual quarterbacking, it's much more large of a jump to say that Fields is going to be really successful and reach that ceiling where he has a lot of traits that guys who were not successful in the NFL had in terms of like the running ability and the big arm. Like a lot of guys have that, but in terms of like going through progressions, having a quick trigger, being able to anticipate, which are all things that are huge, one in quarterbacking and two in the Jets offense, which is going to be heavily reliant on intermediate passing game. That's a lot of yak because the quicker you get the ball to a guy, obviously the more ability he has to tuck the ball and run upfield. Like that's a really important thing. So for me, again, it's just that Wilson's the better like quarterback at this point. I think Fields' ceiling, if he hits it, will be better than Wilson, but it's just, there's a large leap to make that jump to his ceiling for me. So I know you go back and forth. Like last year was all about wide receiver tackle. So
dude, that was like
you're indecisive.
So my opinion last year was more so that I thought 3 of the tackles were going to go, and my thought was that maybe Douglas didn't like the 4th of the tackles, and maybe he liked the number 1 of the wide receivers. Now I thought tackle was the right move to make, so I was fine with that either way. This year, I think quarterback has to be the pick. I've been saying quarterback since, I don't know, week 7 or whenever that was. Now, in terms of Fields and Wilson, my concern with Wilson, I'm fine with, I don't care about the injuries. It doesn't matter to me because I've seen the arm strength post-injury. So I don't think that's a concern. I think for me, where the concern does lie, I think there is some validity to the strength of schedule that he played. But I think there's also, if you're going to knock him for the strength of schedule, you have to be able to give him props for playing the way he did with the talent level that he had around him as well. Because he's not playing with the guys like you mentioned earlier, like a Trey Sermon, like a Chris Olave. Yeah. So the talent level there is different than what Fields had. Now, the end of the season, when we got to see Fields against Clemson, and it was like the 2 big quarterbacks at the time before people really started diving deep into the Wilson stuff, because it felt like Wilson at that time was the third guy that a lot of people were talking about. And there was something about watching Fields just light up that Clemson team and then going into the national title game and just I don't want to say he fell flat, but it felt like he was playing injured because the way he was hit around in the Clemson game, that to me was impressive. I think the size, I don't know what Fields is. I want to say he's like 6'3", like 235.
No, like 225. Yeah.
Okay, so he's probably got like 15, 20 pounds on Wilson. Wilson's actually a lot taller than I thought because I saw the picture of him standing next to Drew Brees, and I was like, okay, I know what Brees' height is. So, it all sort of checks out there. So I think for me, like you were mentioning before, with the ceiling of Fields and like running the 4.4, the big arm, he looked to me like he was a stocky, like a bigger, stronger version of Russell Wilson. But then the decision making, from everything we've heard, the processing power was a little slow. And I don't know necessarily how to gauge that. So I think that's where I was hung up on the back and forth. Like, do I roll with Zach Wilson in a shortened season? We didn't get to see the full complement of teams playing. Like, before the season, I loved Trey Lance. I thought Trey Lance was a great prospect. And then we didn't get to see him at all this year except for the one showcase game. And, that, to me, just not being able to see the guy and the way he threw the ball in the showcase game was enough for me to be like, that's not worth the risk. And then it kind of fell down to Wilson and Fields. And then originally, I think I thought Fields was going to be the pick. And then when we decided to go with Saleh, that felt like more of a Shanahan quarterbacking Wilson. So that's where the wishy-washiness kind of was.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I kind of clarified that.
Wilson has his problems, the risk adversity. There's sometimes on stacked concepts where he's a little bit slower to process, where he'll deliver the ball a little bit late. He has some of the Patrick Mahomes in him in terms of the bad way, which one of Mahomes' biggest weaknesses to me is sometimes he'll bail out of the pocket a little bit too early and not step up in the pocket and then take a 20-yard sack. Wilson has some of that. I want to see some of the footwork cleaned up. I want to see his feet more under him when he's taking drops. I want to see him more smooth in the pocket, a little bit more choppy footwork instead of kind of being too jumpy. There's some things I want to see him fix, but again, those things are a lot more fixable than Fields' biggest issues. And people talk about the progressions of Fields, which again, you'd see him go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. That happened. It just didn't happen enough for me where he was staring down one guy. I think somebody was talking about the guy with the floral shirt talking about film. I don't know if he knows the channel, but I'd invite the guy who's talking crap about the guy in the floral shirt to go to my channel and debate one play that I put up. I want to put up 100 and something plays about him. So if you tell me I'm wrong on one thing, I'll be surprised, J. Cole. So go about that. But
dude, don't call Joe out. Seriously, the dude will throw out a 45-minute to an hour and a half minute long video and just completely dive into the tape. So if you think there's any thought that this guy's blowing smoke up your ass, he'll tell you. If he hasn't watched the guy, he'll be like, look, I don't have enough information to make an informed decision. He said that multiple times on this channel, but that's why I trust Joe. I really do.
Yeah, like I said, and not to be whatever, but I do film breakdowns with guys who played in the NFL, and we agree on a lot of stuff. So if you're gonna be a tough guy on your he's a street fighter, watch out, J. Cole, watch out on freaking YouTube. Okay, but I think it's mock draft time, Ryan. It's 9 o'clock, so.
Ooh, it's 9 o'clock. I just want to get to some super chats real quick. RJ McPot says, wildest smokescreen story you've heard thus far. Wildest one for me, I think, is just the whole, Shanahan knows what the Jets are doing at 2. He thinks he can get Wilson at 3. Jets are going Kyle Pitts or, Justin Fields. That's the wildest thing to me. I think I don't think that makes any sense to me. What about you, Joe? Any sort of wildest smoke screens you've come across?
I've seen a lot of the people talk about the Jets are hyping up Zach Wilson at 2. There's a reason for him to be hyped up. The Jets have to throw a wild smoke screen to Wilson for Wilson to fall to them at 2. So that's some of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. Now maybe were they trying to get in the Jaguars' head so Lawrence fell to them? There's so many dumb things out there, to be completely honest. Trading back and getting a quarterback. I thought the whole thing with keeping Darnold was some dumb opinions I've seen. But in terms of smoke screens, I don't know. I don't really pay attention to a lot of it. I kind of just I don't have enough time for it. I just don't.
Trey says Javon Hawkins, day 2. could have pronounced that wrong. Javon Hawkins, day 2 or 3 pick, home run running back. Do you think the Jets should be taking a running back in this draft? And if so, is there a round that you may think makes sense? To me, Douglas doesn't feel like a guy that's going to use a premium pick. I would say 4th round might be the earliest we see him pull the trigger on one, unless like a really good one falls to the 3rd round. I don't see it. It doesn't seem like it makes sense.
Yeah, I see like a mid-round guy. Like I think for the people who are like, one, if you are a huge Jets fan, like you're studying how much Joe Douglas kind of pays attention to like the positional value, like especially like offensive line, things like that. I don't think a good GM takes a running back at 34 again, like or 23. A running back like for teams who are making that Super Bowl push makes sense. Like, okay, you know, if they don't have one, like let's say, you know, the Bucks wanted to grab Najee Harris or one of those teams, you know, the Chiefs, like with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even though they should have took offensive line, to be completely honest. Like I get that for teams who are looking to get over that hump and who are going towards the Super Bowl. But for the Jets who need, again, 2 linebackers, 2 to 3 corners, a tight end, you know, multiple offensive linemen to take a running back. Like how many people in this chat, like I don't know how many people are in here, you know, 200, 300, whatever it usually is, 400, 500. I know you have a great stream. You know, how many people were excited for the Le'Veon Bell thing? Why did Le'Veon Bell not work out? 1, he got a little bit older, but 2, you can't put a running back behind a bad offensive line. It just does not make sense. And the Jets have a below average offensive line right now. So you got to build that up before you get the running back. And again, the running backs usually last for 3-4 years. You get rid of them. So get a running back when it's that last piece. So first couple rounds, absolutely not. I'd be furious, to be completely honest. Now, like if a guy like you know, whoever it is, like a Michael Carter falls to the 4th round, they really love him. Like 4th round would be like the earliest, because then you have your back, because like they have a lot of guys who are kind of just like Jags, to be completely honest. Like we, you know, I like Ty Johnson, I like Josh Adams, but like they're just guys. Like let's be honest. You know, I think Ty Johnson could be pretty good in this running system, but like look at the 49ers. Like they brought a bunch of guys who were like nobodies, Breda, Moser, like all these guys who were productive because of the offensive line, how they ran the system. You don't need the offense. You don't need the running back. The running back does not make the system. The running back has to be capable. So absolutely not 4th round back the earliest, but yeah, like a Hawkins in the 5th or 6th round, home run hitter, quick. I get it. I'm a little bit worried about his size. And again, I want to watch the film on these guys, but a home run hitter type guy in the later rounds, I could see.
Muttfile says, Ryan, please don't give me nightmares of that Clemson game. Finally over, the loss. Anyway, to me, go by the tape, not the comparison. If a player plays well, get him. Okay, fair enough. I'm assuming, God, I don't know if he's saying Fields or Wilson. It's so confused because Wilson played well in the last game of the season? Was it the last game of the season that he had that? I think Wilson played well. Now I don't remember.
Are you talking about what's that game that everybody talks about that was really bad? I have it in my notes. It's one of the last ones I watched.
Yeah, it was like the Coastal Carolina game.
Coastal Carolina. That game, like, to be honest, again, I'm not a homer. I usually try to be pretty fair. I criticize guys who other people necessarily won't. Like I think Marcus May is overrated, but like there's some people out there who will just hype their players up. But like that game, he wasn't great, but to say he was awful is a joke. Like he was decent. Like he wasn't the Zach Wilson of some other games, but he was okay. And I think like 4 or 5 of the plays he made were like taken back by penalty. He had like an 80-yard touchdown, which was on the screen, to be fair, was taken back by penalty. They were right there at the end of the game. I think it was like a Mills or a crease concept. Again, I'm just people, if you know what that is, you know what it is. But there was a Mills concept or crease. I forget. And the receiver was like 2 yards away from getting into the end zone and making getting the touchdown. So like it's just so funny how narratives change. Like based on stats and like schedule and things like that. Like, okay, you know, if he made that play and they won that game, now he came back and he's the hero and he's so good in late game situations and all this stuff. But it's just like, I just think that people, again, are just too reliant on stats and things like that. Like, there's plenty of games, like whatever. I'm not even gonna get into this, but.
All right, fair enough, guys. We're going to get into our mock draft. Before we do, we're going to be doing a t-shirt giveaway tonight, so make sure you click on the first link in the description down below. There is a link to Jets X Factor and Joe's channel. Click on that link. Oh, burp, sorry. Too many bubbles.
Alcohol burp.
It's an alcohol and a Kalo burp. So head down to the link in the description. Click on that link. Subscribe to Jets X Factor. leave a like on that video, and then leave a comment saying Talking Jets sent you there, or Jets Talk sent you there, and then we will pick a winner at the end of this stream to win a top secret draft shirt. Trey got one last week or 2 weeks ago, so he's pretty excited about it. So if you guys want to get in on it, down in the description down below. All right, let's get into our mock draft. I'll pull this up. So you're not going to be able to see Joe or my face now. Let's see. All right, so we are doing... I probably should have dragged this down a little bit. Let me see if I can move this around and get some more of the screen on there. And I'll kind of talk Joe through it because he's probably not going to be able to... Actually, he's definitely not going to be able to see anything. All right, so we are picking the Jets. Joe, what do you think? No trades. Let's keep it...
I say I say we have 50 minutes left. I think we could do some trades.
Ooh, okay. We'll go on a case by case basis. We're just picking the Jets, right? We're not trying to screw around with anything else.
No, I think what I'm gonna have to do is try to, I guess, view this on YouTube, and I'll be a little bit behind where we are, but I can see the board. I don't know.
Yes. Yep. So I actually did the math before. It's an 8 second delay. Yeah. Oh God, that is awful. Yeah. No, it's 8-second delay. So I'll try to talk it through a little bit, so that way you have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. So 7-round mock draft. Jets are the team we're picking. We're going to do normal draft speed, and we're off. All right. So pick 1, obviously Trevor Lawrence. I think we are probably all on board with this. The pick is going to be Zach Wilson.
So now is this a combination of is it what we want to happen, or is it kind of a combination of what we want to happen, what we think the Jets will do?
Ooh, we can have that discussion at each pick, I think. I think that's fair, and I'm cool with pulling up the little notes on the player for each one. If maybe not each one, but if there's a player that we kind of want to talk about, because I'll be honest, there's 500, 600 people that join this, a draft each year, and I know maybe 20 of them, relatively well, and the rest of them are all just kind of white noise. So if you think you want to throw something out there, by all means. But I think it's all safe for us to say that Zach Wilson is going to be the pick at number 2. And I'm actually shocked no team actually proposed to trade with us. I'm a little surprised.
It should be Wilson again. He's more translatable to me. I feel like Fields is the more and I could be wrong. I like Fields. I'd be happy with him if Wilson wasn't here. But I just feel like he's the more translatable guy where Fields is more like that sexy, Madden type player you can run with and all that stuff. But there's a large leap he needs to make to be a successful quarterback, in my opinion. Is anybody falling who we really like? Elijah Vera Tucker went. Newsom went.
Yep.
We're not in a good spot here, huh?
Yeah, no, this is a little goofy. So we have 2 trade offers. We got the Titans. We're giving up pick 23 and pick 107. They would give us 53, 85, 100. I'm saying no to this because we're dropping back from 23 to 53. That to me, even with the a second and a third round pick next year, that's a no for me.
Let's be honest. I think we want to have picks this year. So to get picks in the next year is ignore that.
So the Dolphins have offered a trade. It would be pick 36 and pick 50. So basically we'd be dropping back from 23 to 36, and then we'd be moving up from pick 154 to pick 50. It's a division rival. I don't like it. I would rather keep our picks and kind of say F the Dolphins.
Yeah, looking at the board from what I can see, there's 2 guys I would really want here. So if we could trade down to the Jags or the Browns and hope that only 2 of the guys go, I think that's a good option, because right now I'm looking at Tevin Jenkins and Farley are 2 guys who I'd really want at this point. Again, Harris, no way. Bateman, absolutely no way. A linebacker, not with Humphrey and Jenkins and Farley on the board. And even Humphrey, we could be lazy and assume that he's going to move to guard. I'm fine with saying I don't know if he can or not. If he's ever played it or not. So I guess we don't have any trade offers, but is there any way can you offer a trade and then go down
Sure.
2 or 3 spots with the Jags or the Browns and try to pick up an extra 5th or 4th or something like that?
Sure. Let's see. Let's we're going to go, let's try the Jags first, I guess. See what we can get.
Yeah, 2 spots, then you take one of Humphrey or Jenkins. I'm cool with that. I think at this point, realistically in the draft, I probably just want the Jets to just draft Jenkins, to be completely honest. But with two offensive linemen again being on the board and just assuming both can play guard, I'd be cool with that. Like, I don't know what the trade value chart is here. Maybe like 130 or 145, like a fifth, move up down 2 spots. I don't know what it'd be.
Let me see. I'll pull up the trade value chart just so we have something to sort of roughly gauge that on.
I would say like 106. I don't know how much we're gonna get here.
So they're saying to drop down 2 picks. That's the average of 40 points. That's like a mid fourth. So let's try to get a third rounder out of it. Let's see if we can get 65. See how
I'd
they
say
do
106.
that.
I think they're definitely gonna reject 65. 106.
So,
or you already try to get it?
I'm gonna give it a go. Trade was declined. Let's go again. All right. We'll try the Jags again. So what'd you say? You said 106?
106. Yeah, 106. You get an extra fourth round pick, and then there should be obviously one of those offensive linemen that we both like right there. And again, that's being lazy and assuming that Humphrey will play guard. Okay, so you want to just take our guy? I don't know who your guy is here, but Jenkins would be my guy. Again, this is assuming that, and just using their board, like based on their board, this is assuming that Farley is not overly healthy. And that's a risk that I don't think I'm willing to take, especially when there's a tackle I like at that, or a guard at that point. So
yeah, I'm on board with that. I like Farley, but that's only if the medicals check out. And if we're going strictly on this board and based on, I think obviously he's this far down because they think the medicals are an issue. Tevin Jenkins, he's the tackle from Oklahoma State. His positives: athletic tackle prospect with potential on both the left and right side. Sets as a wide base, bends his knees, and is quick with his hands, stays square, shows strength, and easily turns defenders from the action. Nicely adjusts to oncoming opponents, fires out to the second level, gets fits on linebackers, and seals them from the action. Smooth pulling across the line of scrimmage, effective blocking motion. I guess I should just go to the analysis, and we'll just do that. Jenkins,
again, with these people, who is running this report and what do they know?
Sure.
Or are they just regurgitating what they hear? I'm not sure who does these reports, but I know I've heard from people who I respect relatively that he can move into guard. And again, if you can have him in guard, and then you don't pick up Fant after the next year or two, whenever he leaves, or you cut him, whatever, he can kick out the tackle. Or if he's an elite guard, a top-notch guard, keep him at guard. Like, guard's important. It's not a devalued position. Offensive line's offensive line for the most part. So I'm cool with Jenkins there for sure.
Yep, I'm good with that. We made the pick, so now we've gone down to pick 34. We have 2 trade offers. The first one comes from the Colts. We'd be going from pick 34 to pick 54, so we'd be dropping 20 slots. We'd be giving up pick 226. The Colts would be giving us pick 127 and then a third and a fourth next year. I don't love the idea of dropping down 20 slots for the Jets. I think there's going to be some good players at this spot that we should be considering. Jalen Phillips is one that I kind of have my eye on. Rousseau, how do you feel about Rousseau? He was considered, like, prior to the season, because he opted out. A lot of people really liked him to be like a top 10 edge rusher, at least from what the mock drafts I was seeing at the beginning of the season was. What do you think about the Colts trade? Do you think we should take a look at the other trade option?
No, I really don't think we should take any trade that's like future picks, because we want more picks this year, if anything. But
okay, here's an interesting one. So we drop 1 pick with the Falcons.
Oh, and
we pick up pick. Yeah, we pick 187. So it's not like a great pick, but it's still an additional pick to drop back 1 slot.
I'm cool with that.
Okay, let's do that. I think that's pretty neat. So they take Kelvin Joseph, the cornerback from Kentucky. Okay. We got 2 trade offers from this. We got the Browns wanting us to drop back 24 slots. I'm going to say no to that one.
Yeah.
And then Denver would be dropping back 5 slots, and then we'd basically be trading up from pick 146 to get their pick number 82. I'm just going to say no. I don't like the idea of wheeling and dealing too much early in the draft. But what are your thoughts?
So with that, like, so you asked me about Rousseau, and I know he was like
Mhm.
high on a lot of people's boards. I know he tested like miserably, but like,
Okay.
I don't testing is not necessarily like something you want to sort of rely on, but if it's really an outlier to what you see on film, like you want to kind of put it in, to your opinion, and like him not being
Mhm.
able to move laterally, so that's definitely a concern. So, I would like with moving down 5 spots, do I see 5 guys that I would want? Like that's kind of where I would fall in that thinking. And like again,
Mhm.
I don't know who's doing these rankings. I don't know what they've watched again. So like, but like based on like positions of need, um, like you see Rousseau there, would he be a bad second round pick? I don't think so. Melon Fonwu, based on where he's ranked, would that be a bad one? No. Leatherwood, I heard he can move into guard. Phillips and Davis. I think there's 5 guys there who I would be willing to take. So to move down 5 spots for an extra third, again, like predicting
Mhm.
mock drafts and predicting trades is it. Let's be honest, it's kind of stupid. But if
Sure.
this was a realistic scenario where they're offering us 5 spots and I see 5 guys on the board that I'd be willing to take here for an extra, third round pick, mid third round pick,
Mhm.
I would do it. But you know, that's up to you.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Screw it. I like this. There's a few guys that I do like on this board.
I would
All
say
right.
Phillips here
So
if it wasn't for the trade, but again, this is assuming because he's so low that he still has those concussion injury problems. Like I think he's a better player than that. Okay,
so this is how the board fell. Uh,
yeah, Phillips is still there.
edge. Yep. So we got a few of the guys you were talking about. A lot of guys are always talking Wyatt Davis. I see a zillion people in the chat. I'll wind up saying Wyatt Davis, Phillips, Leatherwood. Um, so we took the tackle earlier. Now, were you thinking? Oh, we'll go back.
I'm
We'll
thinking
see.
of
This is
Jenkins
who
as a
we got.
guard.
You're thinking Jenkins as a guard. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
probably not thinking Wyatt Davis. Um,
Um.
I would
Yeah.
think, or would you want to double dip at interior?
So I definitely like. It's not that I am here, but the thought of double dipping at offensive line is fine to me. Like I'm completely fine with them taking back-to-back offensive linemen. Like let's say it was
Mhm.
a Jenkins and a Creed. Like I'm cool with that. Would I do that here based on who else is available and like what I know of them?
Mhm.
Like so I've seen Melvin Fonwu like ranked that high, but I've
Mhm.
also seen him as like a third round guy. So like how correct are their
Ooh.
rankings? Let's say this was
Okay.
correct. Like that again, based on film, that Melon Fonwu is a better player than Phillips or whatever it may be. I would take Melon Fonwu,
Mhm.
but based on what I've seen from
Mhm.
each player, Jalen
Mhm.
Phillips is almost like one of these picks at a premium position, one of the top
Yep.
3, 4 most important positions in the NFL. If you were to pair Phillips with Rankins, with Q, and with Lawson, your defensive line is one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL if he hits his ceiling. So, um, I would say Phillips. That's what I'm thinking here. But again, you could
Mhm.
say whoever you want. Maybe the chat decides. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say Phillips as well. I think the premium of an edge rusher or a corner, those were the two spots I was going to go for. So I mean, I like Stokes. I like Asante Samuel Jr., but that's I think that's too high to go out and get him. Um, edge rusher in Phillips. I've taken Phillips as high as 34. So so to take him here, I'm 100% on board with this. It seems like a lot of people really do like him. So yeah, I think that we make that pick and you solidify an edge presence that we just haven't had. We've gone with the elite corners before, and if you don't have an edge rush with your front four and you're not generating pressure, you're not your cornerbacks are only going to be able to hold coverage for so long before wide receivers shake free. And we've seen it with the good corners. Let's try it the opposite route. Let's get the pressure. Vinny Curry's only going to be with us a year, most likely. You
Yeah.
have Phillips paired up with Lawson, with Quinnen Williams, with John Franklin Myers, and the rest of those guys along the defensive line. I think this is a good move here, taking Jalen Phillips.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. Like I said, like I get that corners are like the position that's much more of a need, but in terms of like their ceilings, and people in the chat are like, oh my God, Melon Fonwu, third round, that's crazy. Because like I'm sure there's plenty of things in the draft that you see every year that you get all of it right. Like these guys fall into the third or fourth round who are supposed to be second round picks, like offensive linemen, numerous of them in the last couple of years, who have fell, who people are like, what the hell? Like, why did this guy fall? So it's a little bit of a guessing game for sure, but I've seen him in the third round. Phillips, just based on his ceiling. Some people are saying, like, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah came out and said he's the best rusher in the draft. Now, are you concerned about the concussions and things like that? Sure. Now the argument about corner versus edge and like, yeah, the front seven is better, or the front four specifically is much better. So your corners don't need to be as good, but at the same time, you have Bless Austin starting. Like, let's be honest, Bless Austin's not good at all. I don't care what anybody says he's bad. I have plenty of stuff out there. He's terrible. But so you don't at the same time want to limit the effectiveness of your front four and all the capital you poured into that by having a really bad secondary. So you need to have at least average play as defensive backs. But again, if we don't see a guy who we really like at corner, can you sign a Richard Sherman after the draft? Yes, it's a possibility, or Steven Nelson. So it's not like you need, whatever. But let's see.
So we've taken Zach Wilson, Tevin Jenkins. We're going to kick him into guard. Jalen Phillips, the edge from Miami, and then we're now at pick 66. We do have picks 82 and 86 coming up in this round as well. We did have a trade offer from the Giants. I didn't really like it. It was for a pick next year. I wanted to roll with the picks we got this year. So pick 66. I'll tell you where I'm kind of leaning here, and I'm looking at Landon. I'm looking at Landon Dickerson because it just seems like if the medicals checked out, because was it an ACL? I thought he tore something back in December, and he's like already out there like jumping around already.
So the one thing I will say, and this is not to step on anybody's toes, and especially yours, Ryan, I think people look at offensive linemen and they automatically assume that a guy can fit a position. Like people were talking about Rodney Hudson a lot in free agency. Oh, get him. Like, why did I think it's the Cardinals get him? A guy who should be strictly power should not be playing in a zone heavy system. You have to have lateral ability, and like there's like two sides to that argument where Benton, the offensive line coach of the Jets, which I'll especially once the Jets do it or play some games, I'll break down exactly why they block like they block. But everybody assumes the outside zone. Okay, you have to reach. His system is not necessarily reach heavy. It's more take your initial two steps and your third steps take him where he's going. Type of offensive line blocking system. And again, we can get a lot more into the actual semantics of that and more technical on my show. I'm not gonna do that here. So you don't have to be able to reach guys, but you still do have to be able to move to the second level, because the guy is either going to dive inside, he's either going to stack or he's going to widen outside. And if that guy does widen outside, you have to be able to cut off linebackers. So you still do have to be able to move relatively. And from what I've heard from Dickerson is he's a guy who's not as mobile. So I just don't want to take guys who I don't think will fit the Jets system. Guys like Dickerson, guys like Trey Smith, guys like Ben Cleveland, who I hear on all these mock drafts, take these guys, but then why aren't you accounting for the system? It's like the Buccaneers getting Revis and then playing him in zone. Like, why? Like, he doesn't fit a zone. He's a man guy. So that's my opinion of Dickerson. I don't think he's a fit at all. To be completely honest, in Eichenberg, I've heard he can move into guard, so I think that's a possibility. Who I like here. I also see Molden, who I know is shorter, and some people have talked about the Jets system in terms of wanting bigger guys, and it's always cover three, all this stuff. But they actually ran a good amount of 4, 6, and at least like 30% man last year as well. So I know he's smaller, but towards the end of Salah's like tenure with the Niners, he actually played some smaller guys on the field. So I could see Molden. I would say, personally, I don't know what the chat thinks, I would say Molden or Eichenberg is a guy who's another flexible tackle guard guy. I just don't think Dickerson's a fit really at all.
Okay. So we double dip at offensive line if we go with the Notre Dame tackle in Eichenberg. Eichenberg. Or we go with the cornerback in Molden. Now, for me, I would like to come out of this with what I would feel like is a starting cornerback. But like we mentioned earlier in the stream, Richard Sherman is still out there. I think that's a very real possibility, especially if you come out of the draft and you don't have that starting caliber guy. He can at least hold it down for a season. I'm kind of with you. I don't trust Bless Austin at all.
Yeah,
I think I do like Bryce Hall a lot, but I would like to see an additional corner in here. So do you think...
My vote's for Eichenberg, because I think he could play guard or tackle. And again, it's another position flexibility guy. You let the best compete. Like you have Clark, Eichenberg, Greg Van Roten compete for guard, and then after that, if Fant's not here in a year or two, you have Eichenberg or Jenkins who can kick outside, and then your offensive line, like at that point, assuming these guys are reach their ceilings or somewhat their ceilings, I think your offensive line's pretty set. And again, like, do you want a corner? Do you want the linebacker? Yes, but regardless of what you're going to argue with needs, you need to upgrade the offense for Wilson. You just do. You don't want rookie quarterbacks facing pressure. Look what happened with Darnold. He got super, happy feet in the pocket and things like that when he wasn't necessarily exactly like that with USC. So I would argue that like at this point, is corner a bigger need because we already got an offensive lineman? Yes, but am I fine with building the wall around Wilson? I'm cool with Eichenberg here. That's my opinion. I don't know what people think.
I'm good with that. If they wanted to go entirely on the offensive side of the ball this year, purely because they know, hey, we're not making the playoffs this year, or we're not making a run at the Super Bowl, let's just protect our quarterback as best we can. Let's support him as best we can the way we didn't do it. We pulled the weapons away from Sanchez. We never helped Geno Smith. We never, gave Sam the help he needed on the offensive side of the ball. So if the pick is to go with the offensive side of the ball, I'm okay with Aaron on that on every single side. You like the Notre Dame tackle. I think Fant has the possibility of, being one more year here. He was on a 3-year contract, so he's got the 2-year deal. I think the flexibility, like you're saying, is spot on. So I'm cool with the Notre Dame tackle/guard to protect our new shiny franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and like you said, like even if like and if he works out, like if Fant's your worst piece and your left side, or like let's say the Jets left side, this is just assuming where they would play, but like now you have Becton next to Jenkins, who's another guy who's super physical, next to McGovern, next to Eichenberg, next to Fant, like that's an above average offensive line. It might take him a little bit to gel and stuff like that, and obviously they're going to be young, so they're going to have their blips in the radar and things like that. But still, and now look, now you have Molden still here. Like I think that's a pretty good pick because they definitely need corner.
So I would say I'm good with that. I'm good with taking that. The next guy I'm kind of looking at is Moses. Now I know a lot of people weren't super high.
Jordan too.
We'll go with the corner here. That solves
I agree.
Hopefully solves our corner problem. And now I'm not touching Houston. Get the hell out of here. All right. So you're thinking the tight end Jordan or Moses, right?
So obviously the argument here is I think Jordan's not going to be this low in the draft. I think he goes a little bit higher than that, but based on their rankings, linebacker is a bigger need than tight end for sure, because you don't have a linebacker. Mm-hmm. Like you literally don't right now for that 4-3 that he likes to run. So you're going to kind of force a guy's hand in terms of his defensive play calling. So I think Moses is a better pick here. Even though I would say I like Jordan more, but with looking at the needs on the team, I think Moses is is what I would vote for here.
That's where I actually went with the Jets in my most recent mock draft at the beginning of the 3rd round. I figured, I know a lot of Jet fans are not super high on taking a linebacker early, especially given the Mosley contract and everything. But like we've mentioned before, Mosley could be gone after this season. There's no ties to Joe Douglas. I think he could want to get rid of a very heavy contract. And then Davis is only on our team for the 1 year. So we're going to need someone that can go sideline to sideline. With Robert Saleh being a former linebackers coach, I think he's going to want to bring in his guy. From what I've seen from Moses and the scouting reports that I've read, he seems like a sideline to sideline kind of guy. They say he could play all 3 positions across it, so I'm good with that. I think that's the pick I would make.
Like I said, like based on need, I think it's Moses, but at the same time, like I don't know, like Brett, like Jordan sitting here. I don't know. What did you already take? I think you already might have taken him.
Nope,
so like
I didn't click it yet.
Jordan being here at 86 is like the problem is like didn't they just sign Daniel Brown again today? So like I like tight end is a need. It's more of a secondary need though, where linebacker is more of a primary need to me. Like you want to upgrade tight end, but it's not a necessity because you have some guys there where at linebacker you literally have nothing. So I get wanting Jordan because I think, to be completely honest, he's the better player. But this is you're kind of reaching for need a little, like a tiny smidge here. But I'm okay with Moses and hoping like a Tremble or there's a McKitty later or Eubanks or whoever you may like, and as a developmental guy. And again, the Jets still have next year. Like we still have 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, 2 fourths. Like we have plenty of stuff next year too. So.
I like it. I went with the Moses pick. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll pull up the Jets draft picks that we've made thus far. So we took Zach Wilson, quarterback, Jenkins. We're going to move him into guard. Phillips at edge. Eichenberg going to be a guard or a tackle. for us, gives us a little bit of security in case we move on from Fant or if we don't like Udoga. Quarterback Molden, we were looking at him at 66, so the fact that we got him at 82, I think we were all pretty happy with that. Moses, we went with a linebacker. We think that Saleh is probably going to want to get some of his own guys in there at the position that he coached for many, many years. So now we're sitting at pick 107. We don't have another pick until pick 154, so it's quite a drop. We're talking nearly 50 picks at this point.
So, looking at like what they need, like, so I think like 2 offensive linemen is a pretty good. I think that's something that we should be happy with when you're looking at the picks. But like based on their on their 3 biggest needs of this year, which again to me is easily offensive line, corner, linebacker. Like those are the biggest 3. I could argue taking 2 at each position depending on how many picks you have, who falls. But we addressed offensive line. I would still definitely like another corner. Like let's say if like an Adebo was here, like I would probably make that pick because you really do need 2. But in this situation, I'm assuming they sign a guy after the draft. I get people like Gainwell, but at this point, I think that the tight end is the bigger need. Or a linebacker. I like Surratt probably even more than Moses based on what I've watched. But obviously, again, just going on their rankings, I'm assuming that these are correct. I haven't watched the film. I'll always preface it by saying that because I hate saying, oh, this guy's definitely good watching 5 minutes of YouTube highlights. I think that's absurd that people do that. Dwayne Eskridge, good yak type guy, but again, he's gonna be your 5th or 4th wide receiver at this point. The Jets are pretty good at wide receiver right now. They don't have the top end number 1 guy, but you have a lot of good players there. My thinking is Yeboah, just based on where he is and assuming he could, like, is he a blocker? Like, can you click on him, see if he is he a guy who can block? If he's just a receiving guy, I don't think he fits the system. But if he's a blocker, I would say that the Jets might look at him.
So let's see. They say made the right move transferring from Temple to Mississippi. So Temple, Jersey guy, and
must improve his blocking strength and struggles finishing off opponents. So he's not a good blocker.
All right. So let's say, or no, Temple would be Philly. Is that
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania.
Philly, right?
I don't know if is it in Philly.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in Philly. I know I don't know my colleges too well. I would say okay. So if we're not going to say him with the blocking, I've always loved Kenny Gainwell. I've been saying him since like halfway through the season. He opted out. He had 4 family members die of COVID this year. 4th round, I do think that could be around the time we may consider looking at a running back. Again, I do agree that I think an extra cornerback would be nice. I don't love going linebacker, but I understand the necessity of it. Tight end, I'm one of those guys that kind of falls on the like, let's see Herndon for 1 more year. And then kind of kick that can down the road a season. I do like Patrick Jones, the edge rusher from Pitt. Now, according to these rankings, do we jump at him, 13 players
No, especially
early?
when we already have – didn't we already draft Phillips too?
We did, yes. And we've already spent a lot of money on Lawson, so we're going to be a log jam at that position. So where are you feeling?
So, and again, people like talk like in the chat, like Yeboah. Oh, it's you need a pass catching tight end. Yes, but tight end, especially in this system, especially in an outside zone system, you want guys who can seal off the edge, who could combo to the backside, to the thin backer, like things like that. So you want a guy like, just look at Kittle, like that's the primary guy you want in the system. Do the Jets necessarily have that top end guy? No. So you're going to see Croft on the field a lot. You're going to see Westco because they could both block. You're going to see a guy in Herndon who could do a little bit of both. So are they going to want like a 2nd or 3rd tight end who can't really block? I just don't think that's a Joe Douglas pick. Like this is where like I'm dipping into the side of, okay, I just don't think the Jets would make a receiving tight end pick at this point. I just really don't see it, especially, So my thought is it's not Yeboah just because if he's a blocking guy.
Did I lose you, Joe?
Not Surratt because you have your starting 3, I guess. I would say Trill because he could be your number 2, number 1 corner, whatever. Obviously, you're going to struggle a little bit. They're young. Or I would say Gainwell. But
I'm going Gainwell. I love Gainwell. See, I know I want corner, but I'd rather sign Sherman and have Gainwell as the back. That I don't know. I'm sure I'm probably all over the place on this fucking running back thing, but
That's cool.
I've thoroughly enjoyed watching him. I think he's just so versatile. Now, I don't know.
There's
I
somebody
don't.
in the chat saying
Did,
we're going based on rankings, and it says lol. I want to know how much film this guy has watched, other than 5-minute YouTube highlights. So that's just crazy. People are really confident in watching YouTube highlights.
Oh, dude.
But so now I'm arguing we need another corner.
Sure.
We need I think a developmental blocking like tight end, a guy who's all around, whether that be like a Eubanks or a McKitty. I think is a late around who could do some of that stuff. Receiver like a Felton here if he falls.
Looks like Felton is here.
Yeah, Felton falls. I know he's a guy who could do. Who's a little bit of like he take those jet sweeps. Oh yeah. Oh, but for another 6th-round pick.
I clicked out of it. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
We got 4 picks left. So we got pick 154, 186, 187. So we got a little back.
So what are the biggest needs on the team right now? I would say corner, linebacker, receiver, and then I guess you could figure that out after. But I would say you definitely want a tight end. You definitely want a receiver, somewhere soon. And I know Felton. If you click on him, I think like. He's more of a like a yak type guy, which is like exactly what I can see the Jets using because like just like a generic type of guy, like a Sage Stroud, something like that's not really going to fit here. But like in terms of like using this guy for jet sweeps, using this guy for end rounds, using this guy for that type of role, that Debo Samuel, whatever type role, I could see him being that rookie developing. Maybe Crowder's gone. He develops some of his route running and things like that.
Yeah, based on the positives, it almost feels like this guy could be similar to like a Curtis Samuel type player, a guy that could play running back, guy that could play wide receiver, do the jet sweeps, things of that nature. They're saying he lacks true breakaway speed, not smooth, quick cutback runner. So a little interesting, maybe a little conflicting on all sides. Have you watched enough of him? I'll be honest.
Receiver. I want a receiver who plays more run it, like more of a like. I want a receiver who can play some running back more than a running back who can play some receiver, especially because we got Gainwell. And it seems like he's more of a running back turned receiver more than a receiver turned running back type deal.
Okay, so let's opt out of that for then. Let's take a look at some of these other guys here. We got Cade Johnson.
I see 2 guys. Rodarius Williams, I think, is a bigger developmental type corner, and then Snowden, I think, is like a run and chase type linebacker, which is important in Salah's defense, especially going versus lighter personnel. But I would say if Williams is like a developmental bigger guy, I think that corner is a bigger need because you really do need that. Yeah, nice size cornerback.
Opponent. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm good with cornerback or linebacker. I can understand the need for either one. I'll click on Snowden too, just to get an idea of what they think of him.
If Schwartz was here, I definitely would have taken him, but he just went like a couple picks before. I also, from what I've heard, Divine Diablo is a guy who's like a strong safety, linebacker hybrid guy, so I would really like him if he fell as well. Shive Smith's another guy who I've heard a lot about. So there's a lot of guys who just went before us. Kind of sucks, but let's see.
So they say Snowden is a 3-down defender at the college level and consistently produced at Virginia. He projects as a 3-4 linebacker, but must add bulk to his frame to get stronger. Otherwise, he will struggle in the NFL.
That necessarily doesn't make sense to me because like if you're a thinner guy who can't take on blocks, 3-4s you have to take on more blocks and you're doing a 4-3. So again, who is running that? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I would say Williams would be my pick. That's what I would vote for at this point. Because you really like listen. Like again, we got Molden, who's more of a slot guy. We could obviously just be lazy and say, oh, they already signed Nelson or Sherman at this point, but they didn't, and they need more corners. They definitely do. I'm not comfortable with Bless Austin seeing anything over 10% of snaps. I don't think he's a good player at all. So.
So I went with cornerback. That leads us with pretty much wide receiver, tight end, that sort of realm. And we do have 2 picks back-to-back here coming up in the 6th round.
Somebody said in the chat that they don't like Corey Davis. I don't like him. So I did a breakdown of Corey Davis with a former NFL defensive back. I think that'll change your opinion a little bit, to be completely honest.
Dude, I really like – I'm a big fan of Corey Davis. I think he is – he was the one player – of all the players that we signed, he was the one that I thought the Jets could sign based on the money I thought he was going to get and the style of offense that I thought I don't know. We may have wanted to run. May have want. That is. I don't know if that even made sense. I do like the Corey Davis signing. I think he's going to be an exciting player to watch, and I think he's got a lot of upside. I mean, the guy was drafted, what, 6th or 7th? Like, there's a reason he went that high.
I think he went like 4th, I think.
Yeah, it was, I want to say
he went before Jamal Adams, and Jamal Adams was a 6th pick that year, right?
That was, oh, you're right. You know what?
Yeah, I think he was like the 4th pick. I think he's a 4th pick if I had to guess. So my, just looking at the board while you're thinking of that.
Yep.
So Trey McKitty is a guy who I heard can block a little bit. So it's a developmental guy. You see what you have in a year. Maybe you have to go tight end next year. I'm cool with McKitty, and we have back-to-back picks. And Daz Newsome, from what I've heard too, is like more of like a yak type guy. So I think I think those are pretty good fits right there.
So you're saying the tight end or the receiver?
We have back-to-back, so why not get both?
That is true. I'm not even thinking. I'm looking at the Corey Davis thing. Corey Davis was 5th, so he's 1 pick ahead of Jamal Adams.
Okay. Yeah, go watch that film review. He could do a lot of things. He wasn't just productive because of the system. He's a good route runner. He has good body control. He catches well. He's a good blocker. Like there's a lot to like in his game. My one concern with the Jets offense is who's going to be that true X to take the top off the defense, because Davis was not necessarily a guy who necessarily won vertically a lot. There's a difference between contested catches over the middle, where you can box a guy out, and contested catches vertically. So he didn't do that a lot, and Mims struggled getting off a press last year, which you face more as an X. So I want to see Mims get better getting off a press like he was at the Senior Bowl. Again, he rushed it a little bit. So I think Mims will be more of that guy because he's better vertically in terms of catching balls, like contestedly vertically instead of over the middle. It's a little bit different. But Davis is not the vertical guy. He's more of an intermediate guy, but I still like him a lot. And Marcus, again, he played corner in the NFL for 11 years. Who knows receivers better than a corner who has to study these guys consistently? Any coaches in college football right now, and he really liked him as well. So go watch it if you're a little bit sketchy about that. But I would say, is he a blocker?
So McKitty, they say he's a well-rounded tight end who's effective as a blocker and a pass catcher. So I think that's an easy pick based on what you were thinking we need and what would fit into our system. So let's make that pick there. And then at 187. You like Daz Newsome? That was the one you were saying?
Yeah. Scroll down. Like, who else is there anybody else like here who we really like? Who's who like
slot
maybe they
corner Kerry Vincent Jr. is someone that I, is an interesting player.
But at this point, you already have Molden and
two other,
and you have listen, from what you're hearing, like the little whispers, which are all kind of BS because the Jets do not leak anything. It just does not happen. So it's all more rumors, but. Apparently they like what's his name? Javelin Guidry from last year. So now you have Guidry as your backup slot already. So do you really need another slot guy? I just don't think so, to be completely honest.
I think
another like underrated position that they could take in this draft who people really not might be happy about would be a safety if a safety falls, because that you have Davis, who's more of an unknown. You have Bay, who's on a 1-year contract still at this point, and then you have Joyner, who's on a 1-year contract. So can I see them drafting a guy? Yes, but at this point, I would take I would say Newsome, because he fell this much. I think because of his combine, but like overall at NC, I think he was more of like that gadgety type guy. Maybe I'm wrong about exactly what he is. That's what I thought he was.
Let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. I like it. I do agree with you. I think safety is safety feels like maybe a lesser version of linebacker for what we need. Like, I think we could get by if we didn't go with safety higher. I think linebacker we do have to go a little bit higher on, but I think safety is a sneaky position to need because of the two guys that are on the 1-year contract, and you don't really know entirely what Ashton Davis is going to be. That makes sense. We go with the receiver here, and then we have one more pick. I think we have pick like 226 or something like that. Yeah, 226 coming up here.
Wow, they had what's his name all the way down here? Hawkins too. I know he just went. That's absurd. But So, and did Dax Millen just go too?
Yeah, let's take a look at what we got on the board. So obviously the first few: quarterback, tackle going to be a guard, Jalen Phillips edge rusher, Eichenberg is flexible guard tackle.
Mm-hmm.
You got the cornerbacks in both Williams and Molden. Moses, the linebacker from Alabama, my boy Gainwell running back, helping out our. We see. I like that we're surrounding our young quarterback with what, two offensive linemen, a running back, a tight end, a wide receiver. Like, we're not forgetting about them. And I get these guys are late round picks. They're not going to be like huge contributors right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I think these are, it's not like we're ignoring the position the way we did under McCagnon and, under some of our other previous GMs.
Yeah, like we're still gonna have big needs like next year. Like I think corner would be like one of your first two picks next year. Like you might want another linebacker depending on how Davis works out. You might want another tight end based on how Harden works out. So I would say like tight end, linebacker, corner, and then maybe if you want to bring like that stud number one wide receiver, and you want you want Daz Newsome to be like your fourth after you cut Crowder, and Cole is like your third. Like I'm okay with that. But overall, like in terms of like surrounding the quarterback, like two of the first four picks, guys who are versatile guard tackles. I'm very cool with that. Would I have liked to have seen a corner earlier? Yes, but at the same time, having Phillips, if he hits a ceiling on this defensive line, is what's a better pass rush in the NFL? Like legitimately, like they might struggle to run a little bit. Rankins is a guy who gets tossed around on like combos and stuff like that inside. But like in terms of just pass rushing, like I know people say, oh, well, the Jets in 2010 and all these other teams had great defensive lines and look where that got them. There's a difference between run stuffing defensive lines and pass rushing defensive lines, obviously.
Pick 226. I see a bunch of people in the chat saying kicker.
I'll be okay with the kicker.
I like the kid from Miami, Borregales.
There's one from McPherson and Borregales. I think McPherson actually had better numbers. That's what Nania wanted in terms of kickers.
Let's take a look. Let's see. So,
and at this point, like all these guys, like let's be realistic. Like, are they like? I think is Ben Mason here? I know he's a fullback.
Let's see. Yeah, they probably have him under running back, I guess.
So that they would need that, but I would argue like now, like okay, who makes bigger of an impact? Because you have guys like Wesco, and you have guys like Croft who could fill that role a little bit. Where kicker, I did a show a couple days ago, whatever, and they have nothing. Like that's the one spot Joe Douglas has really ignored. Like, you really want Ficken?
I have taken kicker in every single last pick of my mock drafts. Like, just because we saw him take a punter late last year, and that solves your punting situation. Now, if you can solve your kicking situation, you're getting a starter with pick 226. I'm okay with it. Your kicker's going to score roughly your most points throughout a season. He's kicking your field goals. He's kicking your extra points. Based on the little bit of stats that I read of Borregales, I think he missed 2 field goals all year. Those 2 were between 40 and 49, and then he made all 2 or 3 after outside 50 yards, with his long being 56 yards.
So based on what the chat's saying, and again, we don't really know, that McPherson's the bigger leg guy, but Borregales is automatic up close. It seems like people are really divided on fullback, and the whole thing with Mason is a guy who's a little bit versatile, where he could play, he can run wheel routes. He's a really good blocker. So in this offense, a lot of like they would obviously, they're going to run some 11, but they're going to run a lot of 12 as well. Like, you really need that guy. And if he's a developmental guy who could fill that role, I think Mason or a kicker is a really good pick here. But because there's a lot of people in the chat who are going to be angry either way, I'm going to let you decide here.
All right, let me see if I could see some kicking stats. I don't know if I'll be able to.
I know Nania was adamant about McPherson over Borregales in the chat we've had before.
Okay. So last year, it looks like extra points. He's only missed 1 extra point in his career. Field goals made, he was 77% this past year. He was basically like 90% the 2 years prior to that. Does it have like an advanced kicking thing? I just want to see what his makes and misses were, because if they're like long misses, I don't mind that. I don't see how I can look at that. If Nanny is saying the Florida kicker, I'm okay with that. I don't have any bone to pick as far as kicker goes. The only reason I said Borregales is because he had only missed 2 kicks this past year. Actually, I don't know if the stats I read off it had to be just this year, I would think. So what do you think? Do you think McPherson, because he's got the stronger leg, the field position game might be a bigger benefit, possibly, if they're all if these two are similar in makes, I guess.
Again,
let me pull up Borgalis.
Again, I don't really know because I just don't. So to hear the one a person who I trust relatively to that stuff, I would go McPherson. I know they have Borgalis rated, this low, but they've also had Dax Malign at pick 200 and something too. So I don't really know where they stand on this stuff. I would say McPherson, but I'm also okay with Ben Mason. But I think kicker is the more at this point is more impactful on the team because you have Wesco, who his first year he struggled blocking a little bit, but in terms of blocking last year in line, fullback, H-back, he's actually a lot better than people realized he was in terms of blocking. It's just not something that's sexy, so you're not really going to pay attention to it. So I'm okay with him and Croft, who is also a pretty good blocker. So they could fill that role and probably better than Mason can, especially now because they're obviously more experienced. So I would say kicker would be more impactful on the team. And people talk about man and he's terrible and all this stuff. But a lot of his coverage, his numbers were bad because of the coverage that he had. We didn't have good coverage units, so that affects a lot of numbers. He was okay, but he'll get better. I would say McPherson, but it's not really a big deal.
Yeah,
a lot of people want to trade back and get an extra pick and try to get both.
Ooh, okay. Let's see what we can wheel and deal here. We got 7 minutes. Let's see what we can. Who we want to trade back with? We got the 49ers. We have
to trade back enough where they'd give us an extra 7th round pick. So we had to trade down end of the 7th round. I don't think Mason will be there, but I could be wrong.
Let's see who seems like a good trade shot. Let's see the Eagles at pick 240. Maybe Joe Douglas's former team wants to come back up here. Why the hell not? So we're giving up pick
stop
226.
Overthinking, Jesus. This is not a real draft, and we're debating kickers on a live stream. It's not that serious.
This is entirely important here. So pick 234 and 240. Let's see what we get.
They're not. They're going to reject that.
They
trade this pick for Quincy Wilson.
Is that where this is from? Is that what
I'm
that?
Saying we traded a pick last year for Quincy Wilson. I don't know who else has 2 7th round picks at this point. It would need to be a late 7th.
So Tampa Bay has it. It'll be the last pick in the draft then. Let's do that. Let's see if we can get it.
Oh God. Okay. I guess if not, we'll just take a.
Oh, they got 3. Let's take. I'll try to aim for 251 and 259.
Okay.
Let's take a shot in the dark here.
There you go. I think
all right. It was. Yeah. No. They said don't like that. Let's go with McPherson. I think that's fair. I was looking up Borgalis. It seems like McPherson has the more consistent, career, where Borgalis had a better 2020, I guess. So let's go with the big leg and McPherson. We solve our kicking problem, and then we blow through the rest of this draft. Joe, while this is finishing up here, can you head over to the link that I put in the description so we can pick a winner for our T-shirt giveaway? I'm going to have you pick it. We're going to go through, we'll ask the chat to pick a number, 1 through 10, and you're going to scroll through and you're going to pick our winner for tonight.
The follow Joe Blewett at Jets X Factor, that one?
Yep. Click on that.
The Corey Davis video. I like it.
Yeah, see? All right, so we'll go through what our picks were real quick on the now that we've ended our mock draft. So we got Zach Wilson, quarterback, number 2. We got Jenkins, the tackle from Oklahoma State that's going to kick into guard. Jalen Phillips, edge rusher from Miami. Eichenberg, the versatile guard tackle. Molden and Williams as our cornerbacks. Moses, the linebacker from Alabama. Kenny Gainwell, running back, Memphis. McKitty, the well-rounded tight end from Georgia. We got Newsome, the wide receiver, kind of gadget player from North Carolina. And then kicker to finally solve our kicking woes after what has felt like, the solid last 2 years since we let go of Jason Myers. So pretty happy with how that wound up overall.
Yeah,
Now,
like you surrounded your quarterback. You made his strength even stronger. Like again, there are some weaknesses in terms of the corners and maybe a top end tight end. Like there's some weaknesses on this team, but in terms of like maximizing the picks, I'm okay with it. Phillips is a little bit of a risk just because of the concussions, but if he hits his ceiling, you're looking at a guy who could be the best edge rusher in this draft just to add to what it already is. Like, I'm relatively good with how that turned out.
yeah, and I think like we were saying during the draft too, based on these picks, I would say I think cornerback's going to be a pretty high need depending on where you end up, especially with your 2 first-round picks. I do think tight end will be a need that we might want to address in that first round. But we also have 2 second-round picks next year as well. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility for the Jets, and I think 2022 is a year we should expect the Jets to make some noise and compete for the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I think like this is like again, what I've liked to corner earlier, like you said, like corner's a massive need in this team. Like I think guard is the top need, but that's it, everything being equal and not considering a rookie quarterback, cornerback is a bigger need. But because we have the young player, we're going to address more of the offensive line, if that makes sense. So would I have liked a Farley or a Newsome or one of these players? Yes, but the board just didn't fall like that. Like, I didn't want to reach for a Melanfonwu or a Joseph. Like again, maybe I'll watch the film. I love these guys. I really don't know. But overall, I would say like it's like a B plus, a B plus draft. I'm cool with that. And again, corner is definitely the biggest need, linebacker, tight end, etc. But
Mumtaz drops in with a super chat at the end here, says, what pick do we get from Carolina this year? They have 3 6th-round picks.
I think it's like 224 or something like that.
226, I think, was the pick we had in here. So I think that's probably the one it is. I want to say, would that be I don't know if that's a conditional pick that they traded. Yeah, it's a late 6th-round pick there. All right, so Joe, are you on the video? See some comments.
How am I supposed to pick this?
All right, so we had a few people chime in with some numbers. Muttfile says 2. Barack Obama says 8. Rat Daddy says 1. So let's meet him somewhere in the middle between 2 and 8. So what is that? 5?
We can go with 5. 5 is Corey Davis's draft pick number. We're talking about Corey Davis. It's a Corey Davis video. Look at that.
That makes perfect sense. Let's go with number 5. Who is our winner? The 5th comment.
We have to do 5 from the top or from the bottom. The first one I see that in the chat from the top or the bottom is what I'm going to do.
But they have to be Jets talk ones. They can't be the regular comments on the video.
Of course.
So
top or bottom.
let's top or bottom.
People are
dirty
going
with me.
To the video real quick to see if they're top or bottom.
Who is it?
I saw top first.
Okay, top. Okay. We'll go. I see top. I see bottom, and then the next number is 69.
Matt Monroe.
Ooh, Matt Monroe. You are going to be tonight's winner of our super secret shirt giveaway. Make sure you head over to my Instagram. Shoot me a message. Let me get your shipping information and your shirt size and everything, and I'll send you out a shirt as soon as I get that information. But we have reached the end of our show. So, Joe, any closing words for the panel?
No. I'm excited to see you guys. Well, no, and I continue with words. I'm excited to see you again in a month. I think at this point, next month, we could probably do a show more like maybe some breakdowns, throw in some of that stuff, so I could we can mix it up with some of these guys in the chat who like the YouTube highlights and things like that. We could do that and break down some of these prospects. So I love my monthly trips here. So I'll see you guys in about a month. I'm excited for the draft. Enjoy it.
I love it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, seriously, if you've not checked out Joe's breakdowns, there is a link in the description down below to Jets X Factor. Sub them up. Check out their website. Make sure you like and comment on their videos. They are great friends of the channel. We'll have Robbie Sabo on the Monday show next week, so we'll be talking with him. Guys, my name's Ryan. I've been your pilot. This is Jets Talk, signing off. Jets.